One, roll the footage. Simon, I'm a solo founder. I'm a small team. We have so much going on. It's crazy. We need a little bit more streamlining here, more repeatability, more sanity. We need some checklists, some processes. Otherwise, we burn out. So I call Karl and say, Karl, please bring some systems specifically around operations. And he says, Simon, you are in luck. I got magnetic systems. Welcome, everyone. Karl Stipe from Schwarzwald, the dark forest of Germany, but right now in Texas. Thank you for being here, Karl.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
And before we go to the magnetic systems, why did you, in the first place, fall in love with systems?
Oh, so many reasons. I think, and this comes from Atomic Habits, James Clear, we fall to the level of our systems, not our habits, right? Our habits are determined by our systems. And so, whatever we want in life, we have to have a system to get us there. Doesn't matter if you want to become fit, you have to have a system. If you just kind of like play it by ear, yeah, we'll do it here, we'll exercise there, it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because there is no consistency. And that to me is really the crux of everything that we do, and the lack of where we want to go is we don't have a system that will support us. And so what we do then is we get caught up in all these other things. We get caught up in fire drills, and when that happens, we get thrown off course, and that is when everything kind of falls apart.
As a coach, I see many founders say, Simon, I got this idea. We run with it. It works. Few weeks later, I say, all right, how's the progress on that thing that you started 3 weeks ago? And I say, oh, it's true. I forgot about it. I started the next thing. Do you experience this kind of things?
Oh, yeah. For myself, you try different ideas. Especially in the beginning, you're not sure what's going to work. You're not sure what people will resonate with. And then as you grow and as you try things, it becomes a little bit easier, but then things fall off. And so I've experienced that 1,000 times with my clients and with myself. So I've struggled with really leading people. I've struggled with it because of lack of systems. And so I have gone through many assistants because of my lack of systems. And before we hit record, there is a yin and yang inside of me. My dad was German and my mom was Icelandic. So from the German side, very systems oriented, very regimented, and I rebelled against it, especially as a teenager and even as a young adult. My mom was Icelandic, very creative, a little bit more whimsical, a little bit, sometimes she would sleep in, other times she'd wake up at, 5 a.m. It was just kind of all over the place. And these two parts of me often clash. And so as I've gotten older and I realized to be effective, you have to be able to be consistent. And that means you really have to put these systems in place. And so with my assistants, I kept blaming them. I remember one assistant, she didn't deliver on another project again. We hopped on a call and I'm frustrated. I'm like, at trying to be patient, but that frustration comes out and I could see it in her face. And I put the blame on her. And this is, for me, this is so common. Happens with, it's always, I don't have the right person on the bus. And what I found is it's often the systems that are lacking. Not always, right? A lot of times that person just doesn't have the strengths or doesn't have the skills to do that job. But what I found, and when I finally found an assistant that actually worked well with me, was because I was more organized. I had systems in place. I created a proactive way for her to let me know where she was at in her process, what she was working on, what worked, what didn't. And so that eventually then allowed us to thrive together. And so uh, it's funny because I still every once in a while will message old assistants and just to check in. I like checking in. This part of my systems is checking in with people. And so, I apologize to one that I had a few years back. And she laughed because she's like, yeah. And I was like, how come you never told me? And, I never empowered her to tell me. I didn't ask for that feedback. I just thought, I'm going to ask you to do these things. I expect them done in a certain way. And if they're not, I'll get frustrated. And then we ended up, of course, parting ways. And that to me I was like, that was eye opening. And when I have had an assistant that actually worked, everything got easier. I was less stressed. They were less stressed. And I was getting more done. And I was like, I wish I would have embraced that German side of me, that my dad side of me earlier in my career. But now that I have, it's changed my life, and I'm so glad I have that systems oriented mindset.
What made the difference?
The What really tipped me over to go towards systems and stick with it, so many little things. Like the assistant was one of them. The lack of results that I would get, because I would try different things. You try like social media, right? You try, Twitter, you try YouTube, you try these different things. And, and as an entrepreneur and that creative side of me always wanted to tackle these other projects and these other ideas. And then what ended up happening was, I would dilute myself. And so when I finally brought myself and, sat myself down, usually it was a long walk, and I was like, what's what's working and what's not, and I realized, and you take that time for reflection. And this is an important part, right? Like, I think as people are listening, if they don't have a reflection process, a review process, a retrospective system, they will end up really struggling because you don't take that time to slow down, see what's working and what's not. And then this is really what I did. I started doubling down on what worked. And so, putting little things in place like with the assistant, having her, instead of me chasing her down, like, where's this at? I'd say, okay, every Friday morning, I want you to put a report together, what you worked on, how are things going? What are you struggling with? And that also invited her feedback, right? And just that simple system of having her on Friday mornings basically answer these certain questions, then I would get everything that I needed on Friday afternoon and I could review it and then I could give her feedback. And that, really, not just one light bulb, like the sun exploded over my head from a work perspective because I was like, this is so much easier. And that was probably the impetus of me really embracing systems.
Love this. And right now, what are some systems that you're working on, either with your team or with your clients, that you're passionate about?
Feedback loops. They are they are a gold mine if you can do it and do it consistently. And I think a lot of people, my guess is a lot of people hear that and they're like, yeah, I asked for feedback, or I have an open door policy. And, and, I always, like whenever I'm in a meeting, I say, how's this look? And so you have to ask yourself, is that working? Right? Because what I found is it is a very haphazard way of designing a feedback loop. If you just say open door policy, anybody can come in and let me know what's going on in their life, or in the middle of a meeting with, eight other people, and you say, hey, what do you think? Most of the time, people aren't going to speak up unless you've created that culture. You've created that routine that allows people to give you that feedback, to feel comfortable giving you feedback. And so being able to have that set up and do it in a way that makes people almost excited to give you this feedback because they know you're actually going to listen and you're actually going to use it. And I think part of designing a feedback loop is really the loop part, right? So if you have an employee and you sit down with them and you're asking, okay, what's working well for you? And that's an important question, because if you ask what's working well, they light up like, oh, we're doing this and this is going well and we're doing that. And you're starting to see where they get excited. And this is, I think, really important to highlight, because you're starting to see patterns. And this is, to me, is what systems should be about. They should never be static. Systems should never be built, and then never looked at again. Or, too often, leaders will create Monday morning meetings because that's the way, we've always done it. All right. And everybody gives their status, what they're going to work on that week. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying revisit these things. Well, what's working in the meeting? What's not? Should it be on Tuesday morning? Should it be Monday afternoon when people have time? Because everybody's different. Every team has a different personality. And that's when you start to become not just, and this is the key part. And I think a lot of people struggle with systems because they feel this rigidity to them. They feel like, once I do this, I'm gonna have to do it like this forever. And I think that's, you can design a system any way you want. And that's the beauty of it. And when you create a system that is designed in a way that fits your personality and your team's personality, that's when everybody takes off. So if you design your feedback loop in a way that allows you to capture this. And so one of the things, I was working with a client, I interviewed a bunch of his senior staff. And so what I did is put it all into an Excel sheet. And I'm using AI. I used ChatGPT, and I uploaded it, and I asked for themes. I asked for quotes, really kind of a structured way. And there's a lot I think people can use to improve their systems by implementing AI. And we can talk about that later. But the idea was, in this feedback loop, what you had is you had all this information, and now we disseminated it, used ChatGPT, and then we shared it back out with the team. And so what we did then is we said, okay, we are going to implement these ideas. We can't implement these others, right? We got to stay focused. So we're only going to implement these top 3 concepts, but we want you to be a part of this because we gathered your feedback. What can we do to improve in these areas? And what we did then, we sat down as a team and we actually designed systems that would allow the team to be able to grow in those areas. And you should have seen their faces. They would lit up. They were just so excited and happy and ideating on ideas. And you could see this momentum. Now, I've done these with clients in the past, and like you, I check in and then nothing really has gotten done on these things. So that is when I realized, okay, if you are going to do this, then you need a cadence. You need a way to say, okay, every month I want send me this update, or every week or whatever, every quarter. Then the idea is helping them, right? Because, most of us, especially at some companies, there has been no structure to these things. So what they did is then they put on their calendar, send the team the update, what's going on. Here's the set of questions that you got to answer. And then they would be able to let the team know this is what's happening in this area. This is the progress that we made. This is what we're tracking towards, right? And these systems of like looking at what's working and what's not. And then they could say, oh, look at the progress we've made. Look at what we've accomplished. That makes them feel good because, I don't know how much the audience has studied psychology, but even from their own lives, right? If you have progress, you have a checklist that day, right? You knock a few things off, the little dopamine receptors fire off, you feel happy. Same thing when somebody sends that response and says, hey, these are the things we accomplished, they feel good. The people who read it feel good because now they're closing the loop. You feel more aligned with that person because they actually let you know what's going on, how this project is going. And that created a whole different culture boost that the team did not even expect. They just thought, oh, they would be able to mark these things off or accomplish these things. They didn't realize that the whole culture would change because they all started working together and letting each other know the progress of each of these things that they were working on.
What are some examples of systems that you are implementing with your clients that are very helpful right now?
Oh, man. One of the things I think is really creating a system that gives people appreciation. And that means, from a leadership perspective, is noticing what people are doing well. And this is, I think, one of the best systems anybody can put into a company. Because once again, the psychology of a human is they want to feel appreciated. They want things to go well. They want to feel like that their boss or their colleagues are noticing and they're paying attention to the work that they're doing. And so when you create a system that allows you and the people, the leadership team, to be able to show what's happening, to acknowledge the other people on their team, and to make it in a way that allows them to thrive. Because I think this is another part too, is designing systems based on the teammate's personality. Some people are shy. They don't really feel comfortable if you call them out in the middle of the meeting. They get a little embarrassed, and it actually can have the opposite effect. So, being able to sit down with them, understand how they like to be appreciated. And this is and maybe another thing too is helping people design 101s. So maybe this is a two-parter, appreciation, noticing these things. I
Mm-hmm.
have a client who now keeps a appreciation journal. So every Monday through Thursday, he writes down what he appreciates, that he notices about other people, notices about their work. And I've encouraged him to notice the things that people are working hard on, not just the accomplishments. So if you notice somebody working hard, taking action on things, and just acknowledge that and say, "Hey, I noticed you've been working really hard on this project. You're sending me updates. They're fantastic." So you're reinforcing this positive behavior. and you're allowing them to see that. And then in the one-on-ones, and to me, this is you need to have a structure for your one-on-one. If you're meeting with, doesn't matter if you're meeting with employees or clients, if you don't have a structure and it's just fly by the seat of your pants, you're going to get the fly by the seat of your pants results. And that's usually haphazard. Sometimes it works out well, and sometimes it doesn't. But if you have a structure and not a flexible structure, you don't want just, I'm going to ask you about your family, I'm going to ask you about work, but you really want to structure. And a simple structure can be, and whoever's listening, if you're a leader, I often suggest writing this down. What went well? What could you do a little bit better? And what system can we improve or add to help make things improve in these areas? And by talking about what went well, you can say, okay, you're starting to see the patterns of what they're doing well. How can they can double down on those type of things if they're really good with, for some reason you notice this salesperson closing a lot of leads, right? You then can say, okay, this is a type of person I want them to train my other salespeople. I want them to share this knowledge. What are they doing? What is special about this? And that creates another way of creating that culture of sharing, creating that feedback loops. If people are teaching each other, that really, makes operations so much more effective. And so when you do those structured one-on-ones, then you're gathering this data and you're gathering it in a way that makes it you understand, okay, if this is not working so well and there's a lot of friction here, we can then, because sometimes things are one-off, right? Like, yeah, a salesperson has a few bad weeks. Like, that's not something to build a whole system around. But if it's consistent, and it lasts on week 4, 5, 6, then you can say, yep, we need a better system here. Something's broken. So, let's try to implement something. And this is what I always like is Kaizen from Toyota, constant improvement. So you're just finding ways to constantly improve. You're finding ways to understand where people are coming from, understand yourself better. There's so much data out there. 85% of leaders think they're self-aware. 15% actually are self-aware. Now, this is nebulous in the fact that who's determining awareness, self-awareness, but that usually self-awareness is something that other people see, right? You want to be around a leader who is self-aware. You want to be around somebody who notices if out of anger they say something and then they apologize, or if they made a decision and it wasn't a good decision, you want them to acknowledge that good decision. That's self-awareness instead of trying to cover it up. So these things, they become a part of that culture, a part of that team culture. And when you notice these things, then you can then say, okay, let's adjust the system here or adjust how I'm doing these things. And that's the key, is it's about adjustments. It's not about here's our rigid system, this is the way we do things. It's about saying, okay, what can we do a little bit better based on what we're doing right now?
What makes systems magnetic?
Great question. Magnetic systems draw people to them. So if you are doing something and like you talked about, how you're a very systems oriented guy. And as you do these things, they become easier for you. They become something that's come a little bit more natural to you. And so as you put in a system into your life, it might be, and we'll go back to exercise again, because everybody, always has some desire to be fit or a little healthier, right? So If you are a leader and all you do is you sit in your chair all day long at work, and you notice by 2, 3 o'clock your energy is just waned, right? Like, so you're only getting about 2/3 of your day in, and everything just starts to crumble around you. So if you want more energy, you've got to be able to get healthier. You've got to be able to put things into your day to exercise. Could be weight training, could be walking, all these different things, right? You could say at lunch, I'm going to go play basketball. The idea is putting a system in place that draws you to it. So if you don't like weights, if you say every day I'm going to go to the gym and, pump iron, and you notice every day you avoid going to the gym and pumping iron because you're not drawn to it. So the idea is really aligning the systems that you design and develop to be aligned with your personality, and do it in a way where you're drawn to them. And also do this for the people that you work with. Just like, there's certain things, yes, we need to get done, certain tasks that, we just have to power through a little bit. And eventually, as we grow and as our business grows, like me, I can say, hey, can you do this? And I have a designer, and I have an assistant, and I have a developer. And so that's not something that, but there's things I still have to do. There's follow-ups. I do the sales, right? I do a lot of the strategy behind everything that we do. So, but that stuff more and more, that's just the more I've developed these things and these tasks and these systems, I try to do things that I really enjoy. And I try to stay in my what's called the zone of genius. And that's when you develop these systems that you're drawn to them. They're magnetic. You can't help but, want to do them. So, I had an assistant. We worked really well together, and I noticed, she really didn't like copywriting, right? And I was like, but I need help in this area. And so this is, man, probably about a year ago, I realized with AI coming, onto the scene, I was like, okay, well, let's take this off her plate. And you don't want to just take things off people's plate. So it's about designing with her. So we sat down and we're like, okay, what do you enjoy doing? And we really understood her strengths, what she liked. And so I actually gave her some of the outreach, the cold outreach that I had been doing. And that's worked really well because she has templates. She can easily just use my email address. And so that is working well. And now I've incorporated AI into my systems of, copywriting. And that has worked so much better for both of us. And that's just, little things that you can do. You can start to, and that's those retrospectives. Could be bi-weekly, could be weekly, could be monthly. But the idea is stepping back, looking at what's working, what's not, and then being able to say, okay, let's try it like this. And this is a key part. Whenever you try something new, put a time block on it. Don't just say, this is the way we're going to do it, right? Because who knows? Maybe she misses copywriting, or maybe she doesn't like the cold outreach stuff. Whatever it is, we have to say, okay, let's do this for a month. Let's do this for 3 months. And then let's look at the results. And then you can make a more informed decision based off of those results. And that's why I love systems so much, right? Because it's these little things that we're doing to help us then say, is this the right direction? Are we really going in a way that allows people to thrive? And if so, great. If not, then we need to make adjustments. And that's that iterative process that comes with systems that I think a lot of companies struggle with. And that to me is where that's my bread and butter. Like, okay, you're doing it like this. This is the workflow, just like I did with my assistant, right? You look at that workflow. This is okay. We're doing it like this. Okay, well, let's change this. And don't change five things. Change one thing, right? Because if you change five and now she's upset, now I'm upset, which of the five things went wrong on us? And that is why just start with one thing. This is a marathon, you know? We are in this together. Let's figure this out and let's keep growing and improving together.
What are your favorite podcasts or audiobooks on systems?
Mm, um, Layla Pomper from Process Driven is fantastic. She's on YouTube. She's really playful, and she kind of helps break down the value of systems. And it's funny because one of the things that I've dealt with my clients is really, you know, and I think we talked about this at the beginning, but are we getting the right people on the bus? And if we have the right people on the bus, great. They're working from their strengths. They have the skills to do it. But too often, what ends up happening is, for example, I'll work with a client and they're using Asana or Trello, and they're just like, it's just not good enough. All these things we're trying, and then they'll try ClickUp, right? And they'll get frustrated with ClickUp or whatever, HubSpot, whatever tool that you're using, and it's really not the tool, it's the systems that are created to input into the tool. And this is a key point, is that inputs create the outputs. So just like anything, if you're marketing to the wrong people, you can have the greatest inputs and have the greatest designs and the greatest ads and the greatest emails. And if you're talking to the wrong crowd and you're saying, hey, type A person, you need to do more yoga and meditation, and this is what you need these are the tools and the systems you need to use to become a better leader. That type A guy is going to be like, get out of here with your stuff, like that's not what I need. So that's really important, is really understanding, okay, are we putting in the right inputs? And if so, then okay, then maybe it is a software issue. But if it's not, and you're trying all these things and things are falling apart, that's a systems thing. And so you really have to look at, okay, step back, are the right people doing this, or do we have the systems to support them? Because also too is I find core values are so important from a decision-making standpoint. If a person knows that the company believes in creating delightful customer experiences, right? And, they consistently don't delight the customer. And, and other people are, right? So, the systems that you put in place are working, but for some reason, this one person isn't able to do it. And then you have to get curious and you have to find out why. Why are they struggling? And I worked with a client, and he kept rotating the marketing director, right? It's not working, not working, not working. And so what you have to do then is you've got to get curious. Why is it not working? And this kind of comes back to feedback loops and giving people that chance to talk about what's working, what's not, so then you can make adjustments together. And that's the key part to me, is designing systems together. this shouldn't be, you shouldn't be designing systems in a vacuum, because what ends up happening then is you then just dump this system or dump this thing on them, and then they're like, I wouldn't do it this way. And then they start rebelling in their own head. But if you get their buy-in and they're designing the system with you, one, it makes it easier because you don't have to do all the strategy. They're a part of the strategy sessions, right? You're doing it together and you're like, okay, I could see, but okay, why would this work for you? And why isn't this working for you? And then you can design that system so it fits their personality. And this is, to me, is so important. And it's why EOS, I think a lot of companies struggle. There are so many good parts to EOS, but they're not meant to just plop on top of a company and say, now you're going to do it this way. You have to have the wherewithal to say, okay, let's try some of these things. Let's start out with this part of the company, this team of 5, and see how it works, what they like, what they don't like. But the idea to me is you have to understand where a team is at currently, and then start designing or rethinking how these systems could be improved. And that is when you get people's buy-in, because I don't want to do something somebody just tells me to do. I want to do something because I believe in it. And that, to me, is makes a huge difference in how you build a company and how you be able to get the results that you hope you get.
Which questions are you getting asked most right now?
A lot of them around employee engagement. And that, to me, is a really often a sign of poorly designed systems.
Like
Uh,
my people are not engaged.
yep, yep. And they're just like, well, it's just not working, like, I don't think this person's cut out for this role. Um, and so by understanding that, understanding, okay, that's how you see it. How do they see it? And that's that feedback loop, right? Like, if you're like, okay, what's working for you, what's not, then you can start to understand, okay, is it us? Because sometimes it is the employee. Sometimes they're just not meant to do that role. They're just, maybe they don't have the energy, they don't have the skills or the smarts to be able to handle the role. That's okay, right? And some people um, are meant to, maybe do a different role in the company or move on. Sometimes, to me, this is why coming back to core values is so important. Is if the employee is disengaged, is it because they don't understand the mission and the vision of the company, or the values that the company really truly believes in? And every company has values, whether they are actually documented or not. Every day they are lived out. I worked with a law firm, and one of the law guys, we were doing a core values workshop, and one of the partners came. He's just like, we hired them to do their job. Just effing do their job. Like, and he's like, just to me, right? Not to the whole group. And I laughed and I was like, yeah, I know where you're coming from. But the problem is are you giving them the tools and the support that they need that make them feel connected and desired and appreciated in the role that they're doing? And often it's not. And in this guy's case, it wasn't.
Let's go with his thesis. Like, I just want stuff to work.
Yep.
How much can AI do for us instead of we have to? Because every small business listening right now, they have the hope that they don't have to scale via additional people,
Mhm.
because it takes time, energy, skills to lead people, as you've just explained. So one hope is, hey, I can find a different form of leverage, maybe my expertise in form of IP subscriptions. Um, Maybe it's AI. I get
Yep.
workforce that just delivers.
Yeah. AI can help in a lot of ways. There are many automations you can do. So now with systems, you can say, okay, let's say you use ClickUp, you use it to track your work. Um, you can have whenever something's updated, you can have it, you can follow that task, right? And you can automatically get an update if it went from, you know, um, whether it's just a content update or it got moved from one phase to the next. But you can, that's not really AI, but that's just automation, right? So there's a lot of things you can automate that's not really AI, and you just use like Zapier or make.com. And then what ends up happening is you then save a lot on someone having to review something and then uh, manually typing an email saying, I made this update, right? Because now it's just automated and makes things easier. So there's a lot of things people can do from that perspective. And then as they get a little deeper down that automation, you can have AI ingest emails, right? So you don't have someone, if it's just from, help at whatever your company name is.com, and the email comes in, someone has to read it and then say, okay, this goes to Tom, this goes to Mary, this goes to Julie, whatever it is. Now you can have AI scan that email and then send it to the appropriate person. Now, this takes some time. It takes training. At first, the AI will mess it up, maybe think some keywords or some parts of the email. It should have gone to Tom, but it should have gone to Julie, whatever it is. But then you can train that, and you can actually. What's neat with AI is you can have an AI review the work of an AI, right? And I actually have it's above my technology pay grade, but I have someone help me with that whenever a client wants something like that used in their company. But the key part here is that review, looking at things, what's especially in that first month or so, because all these emails are coming in. You can't just be like, "Yep, it's working." Like this is that part of Kaizen, that constant improvement. You need to be able to look at these emails, review them. You need to ask, Tom and Julie, are you getting the right emails? What's working? What's not? Okay, this isn't working. And then say, okay, we need to make some adjustments to the AI. But eventually, that role that might take someone, 2 hours a day is now that 2 hours a day, 10 hours a week, right? And 40 hours a month, like that's a whole week of work right there, right? Is no longer needed. This is going to happen more and more and more. So, yes, AI can help a lot in these areas, but you still need somebody then to be able to review that work and then make adjustments.
Your X content is also around investing. What is
Hmm.
your investing system?
Ah, so a lot of times, we have money come in, and I try as best I can to stay on top of the market. And so I usually listen to at least one podcast a day. So my system is listen to at least one podcast a day. Sometimes, depending on how busy I am, if I go for an extra walk or if I'm doing the dishes that night, I'll listen to, maybe two or three. And I try to listen on about 1.5 speed, right? Because I've been at this game for a while for investing. And I look at these things and I know I have a pretty good thesis of where things are going, how AI is going to be disruptive in the future, what projects, like you can't go wrong with NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA, no investment advice here, but they are very probably the most important company when it comes to AI to be able to invest in. There's Tesla, of course. But to me, one of the things is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is eventually my thesis is AI is going to need a be able to send micropayments to each other. Now, this has not happened yet, and you really don't want to give them access to your account. But eventually, what you'll do, you'll have like a AI agent, and that AI agent will, be able to pay a subscription for you or be able to find an item. And maybe they have a small account, so that account might be $50 a month, and they can use that for micropayments. They can do stuff. So I feel a lot of this blockchain technology will support that. Ethereum, Solana, Sui. And so I invest in those as well. But the bulk of my portfolio is in Bitcoin because of the mass adoption. But these are systems that I've developed through really a lot of study. And that's so whenever people are thinking about investments, you really have to try to, and I like I guess my core values around investment is very much like Gretzky plays hockey. So you got to skate to where the puck will be. So if you're investing in companies that are currently doing well, that's great. But do they have the infrastructure and the talent to get to where things are going in 5 years? And everything that I do build, all the systems I built stem back from that. And that last point is really important. The system is only as good as the vision that you're trying to execute on, right? So and we talked about this, if I have a vision and it's off, if my vision is, I think we're going to harness the lava in the earth and use that for energy, which people do, but is that sustainable? Is the technology good enough? And so if that's, you dump all your money into thermonuclear yeah, technology, energy, then you might be wrong, right? And so you have to be able to understand and look and just like any business owner, if you have a marketing plan or if you have a sales plan, whatever it is, you really have to make sure it's aligned with where you're trying to go, and is that really people's problems? Because you might be trying to solve the wrong problem and marketing towards that, and it doesn't work. So just like anything, you just have to have a clear vision and then create systems around it to support that vision.
I love that. And Karl, where can people find you, be part of your journey, find your podcast, your work?
Yeah, they can go to systematicleader.co, just co on the end, .co, systematicleader.co. That's the website, and the podcast is of the same name, Systematic Leader. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, all those. And I post on YouTube, but I just started to, so the channel's really small, and that's just under Karl with a K, Staib, Staib. Thank you. This has been fantastic.
Who should not contact you?
I think I want leaders, I want busy leaders, people who realize they can't do it all on their own. They need that support. They need a team. That's the type of people I'm looking for, type of people who they want to streamline stuff, but they need support doing it. And by that is designing systems that work well and using and utilizing the people around you that can really help you and support where you want to go, and they're on board with that, right? And so those are the type of people I want.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Karl, for bringing your wisdom, your experience, your journey, your systems to our community. And please come back soon.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Avoid trying to do thousands of things that doesn't work. We have 274 templates for your business success. Reach your ambitious goals with one-on-one sprint coach. We double your revenue in 90 days.
What if your business would run well even when you are on vacation? Discover how 1,600 business owners have regained their freedom using the Strategy Sprints blueprints. How they enjoy living their dream and watching their business scale. Get the exact checklists they use to go from stressed to fulfilled using the Strategy Sprints method. Order your copy of Strategy Sprints 12 Ways to Accelerate Growth for an Agile Business on Amazon today. And if you love it, leave us a review.